What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And Russell Wilson is the New York Giants starting quarterback, but the question is for how long? The New York Giants drafted Jaxson Dart, number 25 overall, in this year's draft, and we heard a lot of positive buzz surrounding Jaxson Dart throughout the summer. We heard stories of Brian Daboll walking up behind Jaxson Dart and whispering, "I love you," in his ear. We also watched Jaxson Dart ourselves light it up in the preseason. 3 stellar performances on top of a great training camp. Just a great summer in general from the rookie quarterback. And then after a sluggish week 1 from Russell Wilson, the cries for Jaxson Dart to be in the starting lineup got really loud. But after a stellar outing from Russell Wilson in week 2, those cries have been silenced. So now, what is the plan here? What is the Giants' master plan to get Jaxson Dart in the lineup, and how soon will that process happen? That's what we're going to go ahead and have a quick chat about in today's episode. But before we do, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And Russell Wilson played really well in week 2. What do you think that means for Jaxson Dart and his timeline to start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm doing pretty well. And listen, whether Russell Wilson's performance in week 2 was really important to the Giants' timeline and master plan for Jaxson Dart to start. And the reason I say that is because, and I think you guys can all agree, this regime is on fire. Like, they are not only on the hot seat, they turned up the heat below them. You know what I mean? Like, it's red hot right now, losing the first 2 games of the season. You hear reports coming out. You see Brian Daboll. You see him talking. He looks beyond frustrated. He looks demoralized at times. I think that when you kind of identify the reality of the Giants right now is that they have a plan for Jaxson Dart, but they may never get to see that plan come to fruition because they might get fired if they don't step up, this season and get some wins and start to get this thing back on track. But Russell Wilson's performance in this past game at least gets the plan back on track, not necessarily the regime. Jordan Raanan came out this morning in an article and stated that, of course, like very obvious take here, Daboll, Shea Tierney, Mike Kafka, all working with Jaxson Dart. They have a plan to make sure that he is being properly coached up and trained while also trying to win with Russell Wilson and try to have a competent offense. 450 yards, 78% completion rate, 3 touchdowns. We saw that Wilson is capable of being more than competent. He's capable of being a good quarterback for this team. And that helps push Dart's timeline for starting down the road, which is very, very good for the simple reality that he doesn't have to start to save anybody's jobs. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't have to go in there and play because jobs are on the line and they need to convince John Mara and ownership that they deserve another year. Obviously, that's kind of like contradictory to the fact that if they're losing football games and they're losing games, they're on the hot seat anyway. So, Anthony, looking at Russell Wilson's performance and how well he kind of contributed to what should have been a win, how do you feel about Dart's timeline for starting? How do you feel that Russell Wilson's kind of performance plays into that equation?
It definitely extends his time on the field, that's for damn sure. By how much, though, is the question, because individual performances don't necessarily lead to wins, and that's kind of the messed up part about the whole situation here for Russell Wilson. Even if he starts averaging 450 yards per game, but the Giants keep losing, he probably loses his job, and that's messed up, but that's just the harsh reality of the NFL when there's a rookie waiting in the wings and the team is ready to turn to him. And when the team needs to save their job, or the coaches in the front office need to save their job, players will get unfairly and unjustly benched and they will lose their jobs. And again, that's just the harsh reality for Russell Wilson. One stat, actually, Alex, that I saw in that article that you just mentioned from Jordan Raanan that really stood out to me. The last quarterback to start day 1 of their career and win the Super Bowl with the team that they won it with was Peyton Manning. He was drafted in 1998. So, history would tell you the Giants are doing the right job by not starting Jaxson Dart week 1. Of course, there's been other examples of guys who have started midway through their rookie season, Eli Manning being one of them, and guys who started the second season of their career with, of course, Patrick Mahomes being the most notable contributor to that statistic. And that's where this conversation is stemming from. The Giants are going into an 0-2 matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs, who also happen to be 0-2. It's Patrick Mahomes across from Russell Wilson could have been Jaxson Dart if things didn't go as planned in week 2. And when you're looking at how the Chiefs developed Patrick Mahomes, how the Bills, when Brian Dable was there, developed Josh Allen, there is a pretty clear example of how to make a rookie quarterback hit, how to put them into a situation and environment that they can succeed in. Even Lamar Jackson, yes, he played games as a rookie, but he didn't start immediately. And it doesn't always look the same. There's different ways to get it done. Jaden Daniels stepped in last year and was a superstar. Drake May played some games last year and had some good moments and some bad moments, right? So there's so many different ways to develop quarterbacks. But when you look at the top guys, almost none of them started right away. And I think that's notable. And I think that's something that the Giants have taken note of. And that's why they're going about it this way with the Jaxson Dart. But I guess I'll kind of go back to answering your question, though, Alex. I think that Jaxson Dart sees the field early this season if the Giants continue to lose, no matter how well Russell Wilson is playing, for the simple fact of the matter being they are going to want to save their jobs. That's exactly what you said. Now, they've got a really tough matchup here against the 0-2 Chiefs, but albeit the Chiefs, and then they're facing what looks like the best team in football right now, arguably, the Los Angeles Chargers. And then if you want to give them a softball, you throw Jaxson Dart in week 5 if the Giants are 0-4. But I honestly don't think that's fair if Russell Wilson is continuing to throw for 400 yards a clip. So we'll see how it goes. But I'll say this. I'm confident that Russ is going to play well on Sunday. I don't know how well. I don't know if it's going to be well enough to save his job. But he is a good quarterback, and I think he proved that this past Sunday. And if he continues to turn in performances like that, I hope he starts winning games, because I would love to see Russell Wilson continue to play at that level and play the rest of the season.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, like, if the Giants are able to turn things around, and like you said, 0-2 Chiefs, they need to win just as bad as we do. And the Chargers, who look like one of the best teams in football right now, obviously they have some problems of their own. But for the most part, they're dangerous, and they're a good football team, well coached. I feel like the Giants are being pigeonholed to start Dart early no matter what, simply because of the fact, like you said, it doesn't matter how good Russ is playing, they need to save their jobs, and Dart is the only card they have left, right? They've already played all their cards. Everybody knows. They went into free agency, they spent over $100 million. They went into the draft with the 3rd overall pick, armed with tons of draft capital, upgraded multiple spots. They get Carter, they get Holland, they get Adebo, they get Scottaboo, they get Bo, and yet they still look like a losing football team half the time. Whether it's a defensive thing or an offensive thing, or poorly coached, poorly disciplined, they simply are armed to the teeth with talent. You know what I mean? That's not why they're losing football games. The Giants are not losing games because they don't have the talent. The Giants are losing football games because they're poorly coached and poorly disciplined, and guys are just having regression. You know what I mean? So we're kind of in this no man's land right now for Big Blue, where it's like, if you don't start Dart, the time is running out for them to save their jobs. It's the last card they can play. And if you do start Dart, it's because they have to play him, because they're already at that point. It's unfortunate. They're trying to wait as long as humanly possible before flipping that switch, before making that change and going across that bridge. But there's no going back. You know what I mean? The second they make that decision, there is no going back. They have to play a Dart out the rest of the year as long as he's healthy. And you know what I mean? Like, they can't flip-flop back and forth. When they decide to bench Russell Wilson, that is it. Like, that is the decision they make, and they have to be 100% certain that is the right one to do. And they have to be 100% certain that Dart is ready to take on that job. I know you think he's ready right now. Like, he showed the moxie, the confidence, and the discipline. Like, he looks like he's ready to play. The Giants really like him seeing things through the eyes of someone sitting on the bench as QB2. They want him gathering that information. And to be fair, I get the value there. You look at other guys around the league that are having great, renaissance moments across. Baker Mayfield. He was lined up as a practice squad pass rusher for the Panthers a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? You look at Geno Smith. You look at some of these guys. You could even say Daniel Jones right now. Guys that have been on the bench watching, gathering info, and then translating it. I do think there's value to that. But of course, there's no supplement for live action. I do think that they'll wait as long as humanly possible for Dart, but what do you think the value is in him sitting, learning, gathering info, watching different quarterbacks perform, how they navigate certain situations? Do you think there is value there to that?
There's a tremendous amount of value. It's all the things that you just mentioned: the sitting, the learning, the hearing how the play calls are communicated. He has a headset on the sideline sometimes. He has a helmet on and he's got a headset at other times. He's been listening in on how the play calls are being relayed and how the decision making process is unfolding on the sideline between Dable and Kafka and all of the other members of that coaching staff. All of that is tremendously valuable to him, and it's going to help him when he is on the field. While I do think he is ready to play, there is no harm in sitting, waiting, and getting even more ready. You can't be overly prepared to play quarterback in the NFL. It's the most difficult thing you can do in any sport. So having him sit there and grow and develop and learn as much information as possible until he's fully ready, I don't see any problem in it. In fact, I see all of the positives, all of the benefits, and the upside. So I think that it's a good plan for the Giants to try and have Russell Wilson start as many games as possible. Alex, when they signed Russell Wilson, if you think back to the spring when that transaction happened, we were sitting here like, I hope that Jaxson Dart doesn't play this year. I want Russell Wilson to start all 17 games. I want the Giants to win at least 8 games. I want them to go to the playoffs with Russell Wilson, and then Jaxson Dart starts in 2026. Now it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. The Giants are 0-2 and they're facing the Chiefs and then the Chargers. So the likelihood is they're going to be 0-4 and then they're going to probably start this transition early. But Russell Wilson looked in week 2 how we anticipated he could look throughout the season, or at least in spurts throughout the season, meaning he could end up being a 17-game starter who wins some games for the Giants. I'm actually not going to walk that back yet, though. I know that we are facing the Chiefs and we are facing the Chargers any given Sunday, my man. I think that the Giants, they match up right now with this bad Chiefs team. Who is Patrick Mahomes throwing to? Xavier Worthy is out. One of his top receivers is Juju Smith-Schuster. How is that guy still in the league? I mean, Patrick Mahomes isn't working with a whole lot. The Giants could play upset here, and if they do, the whole narrative shifts. We're not talking about Jaxson Dart next week. We're just talking about Russell Wilson and how he's on a 2-week dominant stretch and how the Giants are now picking up a win, and maybe they can pick up some more, and maybe they can actually be competitive this season. There is still an opportunity for Russell Wilson to make the season competitive and to start 10-plus games this year. He's going to have to start winning games, though, because even if he's throwing for 450 yards, 3 bombs of touchdown passes, doesn't matter if the Giants aren't winning. So the Giants start picking up wins. Like you said, Jaxson Dart, in the meantime, soaking up all that information. Watching how Russell Wilson handles this adversity, too, is valuable. He's playing well, but the team is losing. How does Russ handle that? Now Jaxson Dart can learn how he can handle that when that eventually happens to him, because that happens to every quarterback at some point in their careers. So it's all very valuable. I can't give you a definitive answer on when Jaxson Dart is going to start. I have a feeling it's going to be soon just because the Giants are 0-2. But in an ideal world, they continue to let him grow and develop behind the scenes, and Russell Wilson starts winning some damn football games. He's playing some better football. I thought he was the least of the problems in week 1, and he was the solution in week 2. They should have won that game. If he can keep it going, it won't be too long probably until we see Jaxson Dart, but if he can keep playing at a high level, it might be a little bit of a while. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm excited to see what Russ can do in week 3 versus the Chiefs, and then we'll figure out Jaxson Dart, where he stands as a potential starter after that matchup. But I think that's going to wrap up this conversation, guys. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Giants.